We are 3 rounds into the 2022 Formula 1 World Championship season and things are starting to take shape. Ferrari and Charles Leclerc are running away with the titles. Mercedes find themselves second despite being well off the pace in the opening rounds. Red Bull have been on the pace, but reliability issues have seen them fall down to third in the standings. McLaren somehow find themselves in fourth despite being awful for the first 2 rounds of the season. Alpine are exactly where they have been for the last couple of years. Alfa Romeo and HAAS have improved massively. Williams haven't. Aston Martin have been abysmal, and Alpha Tauri, well, they're just there, aren't they? So I thought it'd be fun to have a look ahead to next season and predict the driver lineups for all of the teams for the 2023 Formula 1 World Championship season. So we're going to go through some kind of quick and easy ones to predict first, and no better place to start than with your Constructors' Championship leaders, Ferrari. They've got Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz signed up. They're not going to change going into next season, I don't believe. Charles Leclerc is running away with the title at the minute. Carlos Sainz probably would be second in the standings if he hadn't had such a bad week in Australia. But look, there's no point in changing. They've got arguably the strongest lineup on the grid, and I think they'll keep that for 2023. It's a pretty similar situation for Mercedes. I think they're going to keep their driver lineup as it is going into 2023. I think Lewis Hamilton, he's a 7-time world champion. The only way I would have considered him leaving Mercedes at the end of the season is if he had won the title this year, which, look, he still could, but I think given the kind of gap to Leclerc already and the performance gap between Mercedes and Ferrari, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think he'll hang around and try to win his 8th title next year. George Russell has made a good start at Mercedes, finds himself in second in the championship somehow, despite, his highest position in a race being third, but he's just been very consistent and he's waited for his opportunity for a number of years now. I think they'll keep this driver lineup as it is going into 2023, and I think they'll come back and challenge strongly for the title next season. Next up, we're going to talk about Red Bull. Now, if you'd asked me before this season started what I thought the driver lineup for 2023 would be for Red Bull, I'd have been a little less sure about it. Obviously, Max Verstappen is nailed on. He signed a multi-year contract with them, and there is no reason for them to get rid of him. He is the world champion. He is safe. But I did think there would be some question marks around Sergio Perez at the end of the season. We know how ruthless Red Bull are, and he was nowhere near Verstappen's pace last season. Pierre Gasly has been putting a good case forward for him to be promoted over the last couple of years, but I think that ship has probably sailed for him. But Sergio Perez, at the beginning of this season at least, has come out and he's been a lot closer to Verstappen. He should have won in Saudi Arabia if he hadn't got so unlucky with the safety car coming out just after he pitted, which allowed Leclerc, Sainz and Verstappen all to get ahead of him. But I definitely think that this improvement will convince Red Bull that he is the right guy to keep alongside Verstappen for 2023. He's the ideal second driver for them, and I don't think they're going to be able to replace him with anyone better, so I think they'll keep him for 2023. Next up, we're going with HAAS, and again, I think they're going to keep their driver lineup. Kevin Magnussen obviously came back to the team to replace Nikita Mazepin and join up with Mick Schumacher for the upcoming season. If you had said to me at the beginning of the season that I would be predicting that Magnussen would keep his seat for 2023, I don't think I'd have believed you. I thought it was going to be a stopgap measure before they brought in someone who could maybe bring in more finances going into 2023. But he's just brought a feel-good factor with him, Kevin Magnussen. He's a good benchmark for Mick Schumacher to compare himself against. He was my driver the weekend on the opening round in Bahrain, 5th place in that HAAS. It was an incredible performance. So the only reason I could see him getting dropped is if his performances drop off a cliff, which I don't think they will, because he's always been a relatively consistent driver. And Mick Schumacher, I don't think he's at risk of getting dropped either. Because of the ties with Ferrari and HAAS, I think he's pretty safe, especially with the Schumacher name. He'll have a seat in Formula 1 for the foreseeable future. Alfa Romeo then. Again, market improvement from them this season. I had no faith in them coming into the season at all, but they've been much quicker than I thought they would be. With Valtteri Bottas, I think he's nailed on to stay at the team. He's been really consistent so far this season. Should have been 3 points finishes from 3, if not for the DNF that he had in Saudi Arabia. But I think he's nailed on to be staying there next season. Guan Yu Zhou, I'll be honest, before we saw any racing this season, I thought Guan Yu Zhou would only get 1 year at Alfa Romeo, mainly because I thought Theo Porcher would be waiting in the wings, and I think, like I mentioned in my Drivers' Championship predictions, I didn't particularly rate Guan Yu Zhou as a driver, but I've been pleasantly surprised by him. He hasn't been a million miles off the pace in terms of definitely the races anyway with Valtteri Bottas. He's already got his first points finish, and I think he's going to be a relatively consistent second driver for them. Now, whether he'll get any more years after 2023, I'm not quite sure, but the fact that he hasn't been as bad as I thought he would be, Porcher is probably still a bit raw, as well as that he's a Chinese driver and we're going to have the Chinese Grand Prix next season. I think there's going to be a lot of financial benefits for Alfa Romeo keeping him in 2023, so I think they're going to stick with what they've got for at least 1 more year. With McLaren, it's a kind of a trickier one than any of the ones I've had so far. Lando Norris, again, he's nailed on. He's signed a multi-year contract. He seems quite happy there. The only way I could see him leaving is maybe if Lewis Hamilton was to retire, he might be tempted by an offer from Mercedes to go there and replace him. But I don't think that's going to happen, so I think Lando is safe. The more interesting one is Daniel Ricciardo. Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he will be retained for 2023, but he does need to start improving. You know, he's not had a bad start relative to Norris, but he is still getting beaten by Norris pretty regularly. Now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in the sense that he didn't get any testing in the Bahrain test. He's about 200 laps down on what Norris managed to get because of the fact that he had COVID-19. But there is something in the back of my mind that thinks that Pato O'Ward might be lined up for that seat going forward. So I think if Daniel Ricciardo doesn't improve towards the end of the season, there is a risk that he could be replaced, but I think they will give him 1 more year and he'll be kept on for 2023. The driver lineup for 2023 for Alpine is a bit of a tricky one. Esteban Ocon is signed up. He'll stay at the team. He's been really consistent at the start of this season. I've actually been quite impressed by him. So his seat isn't at any risk. It's the other seat which puts Alpine in a bit of an awkward position. On one hand, you've got Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion, but now in his 40s. He's still showing, signs that he's still a great driver. He's got massive experience, and he's been really unlucky at the start of the season. He was going to finish ahead of Ocon in Saudi Arabia, only for his car decided to die on itself. And then again, the car failed him when he was looking like he could have put it on pole in Australia. Then the bad strategy ended up costing him in the race. On the other hand, you've got a prodigy in Oscar Piastri waiting in the wings. He's a guy that's got a junior career that's comparable with George Russell or Charles Leclerc. So do Alpine want to stick with what they've got and risk losing a potential future world champion, or do they boot out the former world champion and go for a rookie? I personally think they're going to stick. I think Fernando Alonso, he's got the name value, he's got this worldwide standing, which means he probably can stay for as long as he wants. I don't think Alpine are going to force him out, and the only way I could see him leaving of his own accord is if he thought Alpine couldn't get back to challenging for world championships. I don't think they're a million miles off it. With the rate at which these cars can be developed, I think he still thinks that maybe next year he can challenge for a title. So I think they're going to stick, and they may end up losing Oscar Piastri. And if Oscar Piastri does leave Alpine, I think we could see him pop up at Williams for the 2023 season. Alex Albon, I think, will retain his seat ahead of next season, as he's made a really, really good start. He's demolishing Latifi, and he got his first points finish in only his 3rd race in Australia after an incredible drive. Nicholas Latifi, on the other hand, has been abysmal, and I don't mean to sound harsh on him, but the last couple of races have been as bad as it's gotten. It's been as bad as what I've seen from Nikita Mazepin at times last season. He seems to crash in every single race. He's an incident magnet. He's well off the pace in both qualifying and the race. He looks like probably the driver that struggled the most with the changes to these cars. So I really do think that it's time for him to be dropped. Now the only thing is, I'm not sure Oscar Piastri comes with the finances that Williams might need. So they may look to try and bring in someone that can bring them some more backing so they can improve their car. But I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to hope that they're going to go with the racing side of things rather than the financial side when they decide who they pick for the upcoming season. I think Oscar Piastri is the most exciting signing that they could bring in. He'd have a good benchmark on Alex Albon, and I think that would make a really, really nice driver lineup for next season. AlphaTauri then, I think, are the team that have the most variables in terms of what could happen going into next season. I do believe that they could end up keeping their driver lineup as it is. I think they could end up with a completely new driver lineup going into next season. It's really hard to tell. What I do think is I think they will have at least one change, but I think it's the change that they won't want to make. I think Yuki Tsunoda will be the one that will actually keep his seat at AlphaTauri going into next season, but I do think they're going to lose Pierre Gasly. Gasly's carried the team over the last couple of years, but I think he is going to want to spread his wings and go elsewhere to a team that maybe has a longer term ambition than AlphaTauri do. AlphaTauri, realistically, they're never going to be more than a midfield team, whereas I think Gasly is going to feel that he can maybe go somewhere else and make a team his own, and hopefully in a couple of years challenge for a title. I don't think it's going to get that AlphaTauri. Tsunoda has had obviously a tricky start to his Formula 1 career, and it's kind of carried on to this season, although I think the reliability of the car cost him in Saudi Arabia. He didn't even get to run, and then it was a bit messy in Australia, but he was quite good in Bahrain, so it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I think he is going to get a third year in Formula 1 because I don't think AlphaTauri are going to want to change their lineup completely. Now, who will replace Gasly is the question, and it is going to be one of their juniors that are in Formula 2. There's a couple of options. They've obviously got Jehan Daruvala, they've got Yuri Vips, they've got Dennis Hauger, but I think the one that they're going to go with is Liam Lawson. Lawson, he's made a really good start to the Formula 2 Championship. He's currently in second place, and probably will feel he's a bit unlucky not to be leading the standings. But he's made a really good start, and he is the one that I did think would be most likely to get the promotion to AlphaTauri for next season. He has a good relationship with Yuki Tsunoda. I think it'd be really good for the team to have that sort of relationship for a new driver coming into the team. So I think their new driver lineup for 2023 will be an inexperienced one with Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. So the last team left then are Aston Martin, who, like I mentioned earlier, have had an atrocious start to the season. They're the only team without a point currently. They've looked massively off the pace in every single race so far. Lance Stroll has been a little bit all over the place. Sebastian Vettel missed the first two races because of COVID-19, replaced by Nico Hülkenberg. Came back in Australia, had more troubles in qualifying. Barely got a lap in, started towards the back, retired during the race. It's been as bad as they probably could have wished for or hoped for. But ultimately, this is a long-term project, and I think it will still be quite an enticing one for other drivers coming in over the next couple of years. Lance Stroll is nailed on because his father runs the team, even though he's been pretty damn poor for the last couple of months. But it's the other seat that I think might shock a few people with who have gone for on it. But maybe you already know based on the fact that one driver in particular doesn't have a seat. I'm going to go with Pierre Gasly to replace Sebastian Vettel. Gasly, I think, will look at it and see that it is a long-term plan, and in a couple of years, hopefully, Aston Martin will be a lot further up than they currently are. Whereas Sebastian Vettel, at his age, I don't think he'll have the patience to stick around for it. It's been a bad year to start with, and even towards the end of last year it was pretty poor at times. I don't think he's going to want to stick around for battling for 16th and 17th place, wherever, or scrapping to try and get a point. I think he wants success now, and I just don't think he's going to get it. So I think he might retire from Formula 1, or at least take a couple of years out and maybe see if he can get back in a few years. But I think this might be the end of the road for Sebastian Vettel, and what a career it's been. But I think now might be the right time to let go. I think Pierre Gasly would probably jump at the chance to go to Aston Martin, although they are still currently behind AlphaTauri in the standings. I think that long-term project to get Aston Martin to the top would be something that would really entice him, and he could be the one to take them forward. So I think their driver lineup for next season will be Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll. So those are my predictions for the 2023 driver lineups. Obviously a lot can change between now and then, and I do expect there to be a little bit of variation in what I've predicted, but I do think that a lot of teams will keep their driver lineups, and we might see some shock moves. But look, we can only wait and see. There'll be a lot of development between now and the end of the season, and we can come back in a year's time and see how wrong I was. So once again, thanks for watching. Leave a comment and give a subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.